time is energy. I wish I couldn't put any more slides in this than I did, but I just want you to think of energy. What creates growth is energy. And a lot of it is your energy, okay? And your team's energy. Time is energy, okay? So let's just really focus on this just for a couple minutes. And I think that I put the energy element and the time element in for us, that maybe it wouldn't be an element that would be so concerned about in a quote a manufacturing model. Does that make sense? But you know, we're there in the office and we're the ones that are doing the work, right? We're the ones that I like to say have our belly up to the chair, okay? So it's us. So energy in time, how we use our time. And again, I refer to the creative process. The creative process is one that gives you more energy. The reactive process is one that takes energy away from you. So as you think, sometimes we get trapped in the reaction versus. And one of the first books that turned me on was a book on time management by Lacan. And in his book, this is what he said. He said, waste your time, you waste your life. Master your time, you master your life. And the way you do more with less is to master your time. The way, and really focus your energy. So this is really a lot about 80-20. Okay? So when you think about your time strategy, you got to think about your A, B, and C priorities. You got to think about your A, B, and C procedures. You got to think about your A, B, and C patients. And if you're a specialist, you got to think about your A, B, and C doctors. Okay? And you really need to really think seriously if you're a generalist or probably anything about color coding and block scheduling. Okay? If you just did this, you'd increase your production 15%. And I said that one time to a group of students I was working with, and one of them said, no, I increased my production 200% by doing this, not 15%. But I think 200 wouldn't be an average of what people could sustain just by really, really looking at their time. But it's how I was able to teach at Iowa. It's how I was able to go to graduate school. It's how I was able to teach 100 weeks at the Pankey Institute. It's how I was able to take courses, how I was able to start the center, I was 80-20. I was able, when my kids were growing up, I worked from 7 to 1 and we were on the river every day. I just really, really focused on what mattered most in the office and what mattered most outside the office. And it's just, because time, you know, there's a lot of young people in the room. And young people think they're going to live forever, okay? But once you get to about the magic area of 50, you realize you're not going to live forever anymore. So the issue with time always begins with what? Planning. Okay? Okay? Where have you been? Where are you now? Where do you want to go or become? And how are you going to get there? The 4 questions. When I get on the airplane and go someplace, and I don't do as much travel as I used to, I always take a yellow pad of paper, and if I'm thinking about any area, I said, okay, where have I been with that? Where am I now with that? Where do I want to go with that? How do I want to get there? Right? Because how you want to get there isn't going to happen until you know where you've been and you want to go. So time is really an invisible asset. It's like that leadership thing, right? It's like you only really see the evidence of time when you see how people really organize and orchestrate their life. You know, it's really interesting in the work that we do with dentists. I mean, they forget appointments, they don't show up, they work through emergencies. You'll have an appointment scheduled for 2 weeks and they get an emergency and they cancel the appointment. They are absolutely out of control of their lives. They're stuck right, understand that it's not just about money, it's time. If you haven't got control of time and you don't have control of money, you are stuck and you are not going to grow and evolve. You're going to stay right where you are. 2 of the most important things you have. And of the 2, time is much more important. You can have all the money in the world, but if you ain't got any time, what difference does it make? So there's that relationship again. So I think it's just something that we just need to think about, okay? We know when we've got it, and we feel when we don't. Isn't that true? But it's invisible. We know when we've got it, and we know, and we all lose control of it from time to time. But what's the pattern here, right? Are you always working late? You know, do you always get home late? You know, what's going on? Do you always have emergencies going on? Okay. So this is Einstein. Time is relative, okay? The older you get, the faster it goes. Haven't everybody found that to be true? It's relative. Well, why is it relative? Well, when you were 10, 1 year was 1/10 of your life experience. When you're 50, it's 1/50. It just goes faster. I mean, it just seems like around here, it gets a little, the summer breaks late, right? Our summer breaks October 15th. Isn't that true? And then all of a sudden, it's pumpkin patch, it's Thanksgiving, and boom, New Year. I mean, it just, doesn't it go? Help me with this. So the older you get, the more important it becomes to what? 80-20. The more important it becomes, because time becomes more important because you realize you got less of it, okay? So again, I say, master your time, you master your life. Waste your time, you waste your life. 80-20. 80-20 everything. To 80-20 your time, you've got to you can't just say I'm going to 80-20 my time without 80-20 my patience, without 80-20 my marketing, without 80-20, you know. Isn't that true? Don't you know sometimes, those of you that are in practice, you know, you're starting to talk to somebody and you just get that feeling. That old, no, I'm not a singer, Patty. You just get that feeling in your gut is screaming at you that this is not right. Anybody ever had that? Walk away. Okay. Walk away. Okay. You've got to be able to walk away. To do more with less, you have to give up some of the more, right? But if you're in survival and you're chasing that, you're never going to get to this point. So 80-20 is that spot, is that place where you reverse it, right? Anybody, now we all have, now let's be clear about this. We all have parts of our life that we get trapped into that we don't like. Could I have a show of hands? Okay, just to know that I'm, okay, thank you. So stuff happens, right? Now, in the world of business, the average person gets to do 30% of what they like. This is Kathy Kolbe's research. 70% of what they're doing they dislike. Now, the happiness factor gets up to, people are really pretty happy when they get to do 60% of what they like. And they're still putting up with 40% of you know what, okay? So I'm not suggesting that in your life or my life that we're going to get to nirvana on this planet where 100% is going to be, but wow, when you get 80% of what you're doing is in your sweet spot, and I mean in your sweet spot at work, in your home, with your friends, in your relationships, you better get down on your knees and give some thanks here. Because this is a pretty significant. My buddy Jack Higgins says 60% is what most people shoot for in corporate America. But because we own our own practices, right? Because we're the composers and the conductors, we're the ones that get to decide what that is. And that's why we built the model like this, with values come first. So that's an important key, is time. Would you agree? And I never seem to spend enough time on time. It's interesting that in all the work, obviously I've done a fair amount of thinking about this, but when this is a preview to the book I'm writing, okay? And in the book, I'm going to have a full Monty chapter on time. I'm really going to kill time, kill it, because it is so important to us, isn't it?